Right, welcome to Culture Couch Live for this week. Macca, how are you guys?
Thanks,
Very
buddy.
well, Ruth. Thank you.
Excellent. Now, just a little bit of a change of tack we thought we'd do this week, and we brought in Tammy Ruse, our wellness director. Hello, Tammy. How are you?
Good to see you. How are you? Lovely to see you, boys.
Yeah, lovely to see you, Tammy. So what we thought we'd do this week, it's probably something that's come up a lot, particularly in our workshops and what we're talking to our execs about coming out of COVID, is really just general wellness. And I guess I talk about it a lot, as you know, Woz and Macca, that I think as the staff wants you to turn up the best version of yourselves, and often it's the leaders and CEOs and managers that tend to give, and they don't look after themselves as much. So Tammy, maybe you just want to pick up on that conversation first, and then we can sort of throw it around and have some discussion around what does wellness look like? Because it does look different for other people, but certainly from your background in meditation and wellness and mindfulness, perhaps speak to that for a little bit and how important it is to show up the best version of you.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think, as you've said already, everyone's talking about it. Wellness is just something that's become front and center on everyone's mind. And it's really about how you feel. Like, if you want to simplify it, it's how are you actually feeling within yourself in terms of wellness? And that's mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Like, just how do you feel yourself? And, I was saying to someone earlier today, oftentimes people think that, they look outside. They're always looking outside themselves. Where are they going to find this sense of, I guess, inner peace? But really, this sense of how we're feeling, that's all this inside job. So when you say, how do I show up and how can I do things that are going to actually help me? It's something that we have to gauge in on a daily basis. So, and one thing that's really surprised me, I have to be honest, is I've been a bit surprised through the last few years when everyone's talking about how we can keep people safe and through this entire, this 3 years of the pandemic. But a lot of people really, if you say, what's your wellness routine look like, they haven't even identified it. They're not looking at like, what is wellness really about? So for me, wellness is doing those things, those small daily habits that add up to making you feel better yourself. So, and that can mean, it doesn't have to be the same for everyone, obviously, but exercise is a huge part of my wellness routine because I just like to get out. I like to move. I like to look around. It helps me change my perspective. It grounds me, and I just feel energized from movement in the body. Obviously, I think meditation is a huge part of the wellness space that more and more people are looking at. And what's so powerful about the meditation space that many, I know there's people sometimes get caught up and think it's more challenging or harder than it is, or you have to feel a certain thing or have a certain experience to actually benefit, but that's not the case. It's truly just learning to set aside, if it's 5 or 10 minutes, just this time that's for you. Have a time out, pause, just, you close the eyes and really then focus on the sound of your breath. If you can do that for 10 minutes every day, you will seriously start noticing some benefits. It's that simple. I think there's hydration's important, making sure we're drinking enough fluids. And those are 3 really, really easy steps. And there's so many others we can discuss about how you can show up feeling better. And I know one of the things that all of you at Performance by Design, obviously we talk about, is the gratitude. Gratitude is amazing because gratitude will bring you into the present moment. Because if you ask someone, if I say to James, what are you grateful for right now or grateful for, you have to come into the present moment. It's not, 2 years ago I was grateful for. No, it's a present moment idea. So what that does is, if you're caught up in a monkey brain, or if you're off on a tangent, or even if you're feeling like I'm a bit flat today, you start practicing gratitude and you have to go into right now, in this very moment, what am I grateful for? You actually, oftentimes, I'm not going to say 100%, but to be honest, it's pretty close. You will feel better just for acknowledging right now in this moment what you're grateful for. And that's a really easy, and it's not even, I don't want to call it a hack, but it's something that you can do to change your mindset just by doing something. It will take you 2 minutes.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you're, I suppose, one of those really burned out CEOs running big companies and that. And you significantly, what was the moment for you where you played footy, and you were active as a teenager and in your 20s, but what was the reconnection to wellness from you when it sort of changed, 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, mine came from medication anxiety. Like I was medicating myself and masking over a foundational problem. Ultimately, the definition of insanity is you're doing exactly the same thing consistently and expecting a different outcome. And my sort of wellness encapsulation has gone well beyond meditation now. But the first sort of evolution was, okay, is there something I can do differently to change the foundations of my daily or my platform in general as a human that might actually influence me to be able to live a less anxious life? So that was just the basic start of why. And so funnily enough, I just sort of introduced several things at once. So I obviously introduced Tammy, and I was obviously said this many times on Culture Cats Live, but I was one of those sort of people who was of the expectation it's this moment where you're having an epiphany and but also excusing it because I didn't have time. I don't have the 5 minutes today to do so, without the understanding that obviously by doing the 5 minutes I'll get the time back. But by changing the fundamentals, so the first one was sort of introducing meditation. I did the diet change, sort of looked at foundationally, what am I eating? What am I actually putting into my body? I was good at exercising, but I didn't say create it part of my routine. So I sort of put all these things in at once. But I would suggest that foundationally, and Tammy talks about this a lot of times when in the early phases, you don't necessarily see yourself. So that self-awareness piece is not necessarily prevalent. So I would have people go to me, what have you been doing differently? What's happened? And I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't really get it. And I don't really, and I didn't see it myself. But I actually weaned myself off medication, and I actually tried it many times before in the 10 years. And all of the negative thoughts that I was having would just immediately come back after a week or two of the medication not working. But through this period, I weaned myself on medication. It took only a couple of weeks to a month. And it's been 4 years now since that moment, being Tammy and going through the exercise. I haven't had a thought like that since. Not to say that I don't get anxious, but to say that things don't go wrong or I don't react, because that's just what happens to human beings. But that was sort of the evolution. But the big sort of morph from that now, coming back to your question earlier, is just defining what are we doing anything in life for, right? Going to work or creating an outcome, getting an income. Are you doing it to be happy? Because a lot of times we are going through this process of earning money, buying assets, doing things, but we're actually not happy. And so the gratitude journal piece was a big step for me, and it's right next to me all the time. I've got it here. I'm reading this book right now, which it's just become my Bible. It's by Ryan Holiday. It's called Stillness is the Key, and it goes into this sort of thought process. It's why are we here? What do we stand for? What's important to us in general? And once we can a lot of times it's actually trying to define happiness, but happiness for a lot of people is unachievable, because once you get to a certain point in the evolution of time, you go, okay, I've got to that point, but that's where I set the bar before. I'll just set it again. And Tiger Woods is a good example of that, right? He just never gets enough. Right? He's a very successful person. I'm sort of ranting with you because of my love for this work. But he gets to all these successful things, and he never actually gets to an element of happiness. And that's why behind the scenes, his life has been a complete shambles. Me was foundationally, triggers were required to change in my life because of things were going wrong. But I continued on that journey, and I feel like I'm significantly happier because of it.
And Mac, you started meditating, correct if I'm wrong, through the COVID. Was there a catalyst for you to sort of look internally, as Woz was saying? I mean, Tammy mentioned before, most people look externally, but what was your catalyst to start looking internally at how you were feeling?
Look, I mean, I've always had reasonable self-awareness. I knew I was an outgoing sort of person, and connection was my source of energy. So when we were locked down, pardon me, in March 2020, I guess it was, it wasn't long before I realized it was about sort of Anzac Day, April. I was like, hang on a minute, I am feeling like, you know what? We were separated from one another. That's me and mates and friends and activities. And I started to feel a bit anxious about that. Out of the blue, a mate rings me. He's been a former personal trainer, and he was going to run an online 28-day program where each day he would provide content on mindfulness, movement, and nutrition. What a lifesaver! It was the mindfulness aspects of that inclusion. So nutrition and exercise, I always knew were going to be good for anyone, but for me particularly. That led me into the Calm app, the Headspace app. I'm just looking for other things, and I really started to dive into meditation and being, as Tammy said before, in the moment. Nothing can hurt you in the present moment. Nothing that you've been worrying about, nothing that's going to happen in the moment. You're safe, and so that was like just a light in a very dark room, and it also identified that much of my life and much of the way I'd lived probably had been objectifying things, attaching myself to things. If I do this, this will be great. And that sort of ego piece was really something I wanted to understand and learn more about. And from there, lots of reading, but lots of practice with weekly meditation classes and just coming to a realization that I'd probably lived big parts of my life, which is a reasonably long life, through the lens of fear, and fear being, if this happens, I'll lose that. If this happens, I won't get, and I think a lot of people probably do that. To me, it was like a very thin curtain, going through a curtain from fear into love and just saying, you know what, I got to love myself. I got to be really happy about what I've already got, the things around me, the people around me, the things that I'm giving to others. And it just led me on this journey of giving is far more important than getting. So realizing that we're all connected. We four are connected. The people watching this video are connected. Their pain is my pain. My joy is their joy. And just kind of realizing that if you can stay present, stay in a level of acceptance, nothing's permanent. It's always, everything's going to pass. We've had some, things in sport here in Australia yesterday. That's not permanent. Things will move on. Accept all things in conditions is one of my sort of mantras, and surrender and experience peace is the next one. So, that's kind of where I've gone, Rosie. And a lot of people who know me, who might watch this, will be surprised to hear that 2-year journey. But it's been magnificent.
It's fantastic, James, because there's such a level, I can feel and see the acceptance in you as well. And it's funny what you were saying just about the journey and whatever's present, because today I actually journaled about, and I remember a practice, and it just came up the last couple of weeks, getting in my mind that, situations or things aren't happening to me, they're happening for me. Yeah. So it's like, is this a teacher? Someone's showing up. Is this a lesson for me to learn? Is this a teacher? Am I learning what is happening for me? And it's quite interesting when you change that mindset. And so even if it's something that's annoying, do I have the capacity or the awareness to then say, thank you for this situation? Because there's something in here that it's been guided to me in this moment, again, to assist me. Yeah. And I think if we start changing that, because you're right, we are in a constant state of flux. And the only thing we actually have control over is on what is about ourselves, what we say, do, think, and feel. We don't control our children, our partners, the weather, what the government may say, anything else. We are only in charge of ourselves. So when you get to that level of acceptance and then realize, okay, so this isn't personal. It didn't happen to me. It's happening for me. How do I learn from this? I think it's a pretty key distinction.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even talking now as we're going through, it's probably something we should do on Culture Couch once a month, because we could spend another hour talking about this. But Just to finish it off, and I'll start with you, Tammy, just some really practical tips. What are some really practical tips for people? Because it is going to be different for everyone else, but what have you found worked? And in your teachings, what do you find that most people sort of resonate with? Just some really practical tips where people, and let's look at the beginners. Let's look at the people that perhaps are watching now going, but how do I start? How do I start? How do I start? 20 years ago, I used to be playing netball or football or whatever. I'm in a really stressful working hours a day. Let's talk to those people a little bit and say, what's your response to them, and how can they get started? Just some really good practical tips.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm saying this from a space of talking to those people who really do want to change. So can I preface that? Those that are truly saying that they want to have a different experience or more energy or a different mindset, how they show up at work or even at home. The first thing is just being really honest with yourself. How are you feeling? I think you've really got to get clear on that. Do you feel sluggish? Do you have energy? Are you sleeping well? Do you, is there moments during the day? Have you been telling yourself for the last 2 months almost to, Warren's comment earlier about you can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result unless you're going to do something differently. So if you're someone who's been saying, I'm going to get out there and exercise and it's going to be this thing and you still haven't done it. So how are you going to change it? You just first start off with a little bit of accountability for yourself, because at the end of the day, your health is your responsibility. It's no one else's. So that's the first thing. I just kind of want to set the tone for that. After you've identified where you're at or how you're feeling, and you can do that so easily. Do it on a scale of 1 to 10. Like most days I show up as a 5 or I'm a 4 or I'm a 6, whatever it might be a bit honest with yourself and say, what are the things then that I enjoy doing? So if it is, I actually, I love getting outside and I can find 15 minutes in my day to go for a walk, or it's going to be, I'm going to go for a jog. If you're someone who needs to be motivated, then perhaps work out someone that you can work out with from the office or a friend. But you know what? Sometimes, again, it's that connection piece. Going back to what James was saying, we are all interconnected. We are all one. So find someone that can help motivate you, who can be a little bit of the cheerleader in your corner for you, and you can be that same role for them. So I think that's something that really helps you stay on track. If you have so if you're at an office and you're going back in and you're set with a lot of meetings, something that I actually thought was really, instead of going, okay, I'm going to meet you for your coffee, why don't you just do a walk? Okay, go for a walk and you have a meeting in that way. There's data that supports you actually retain a lot more information if you're actually physically moving. So go for a walk, have a meeting that way. And then that way you've gone, wow, actually, I love that. I exercised, I got outside, I wasn't sitting there, and you got the connection piece, but also you've done the business piece. So it's actually a win-win. I'd start small. I think if you can, again, there's 1,440 minutes in a 24-hour clock. You have to be able to find 5 minutes, okay? 5 minutes out of 1,440 in your 24-hour day to just set aside some time just for you. Put the mobile phone aside, close your eyes, and literally, I think one of the best things you can do is just do 10 deep inhalations and exhalations. Just focus on the sound of your breath. What we know and what happens is if you focus on the sound, you cannot have a thought. So then you can't be distracted by thinking my mind's just racing. Listen to the sound of your breath. Take a time out. Again, this is about you deciding that you are worth it and that your health has meaning for you. You can practice gratitude. You can do that at the start of your day with your team, or you practice it yourself. Again, it's personal. It's what works for you. If you prefer to write, your thoughts down on a journal where no one else sees it, great. Then journal at the start of the day or the end of the day. Whatever makes it easy for you. But there are so many ways that you can actually start embracing health and making it work in an office space as well. I think one of the mindfulness tricks that's actually quite good is if you're feeling stressed and you hopefully, but it doesn't matter if it's a cup of coffee or if it's a herbal tea, either way, just sit with the cup of coffee or tea and just feel the warmth in your hands. Can you just take a deep breath in, relax in your chair or your seat or at the desk, wherever it may be, and close your eyes and just feel into that space and just say, it's almost like having that very clear intention. I'm having this cup of tea or this cup of coffee right now, and I'm going to just enjoy myself and relax. Because whatever it is that you are worrying about, let it go, because it's going to be there when you come out of this. This is your time. It's really fundamental to understand that you need to like literally play some tricks with your own mind or the ego there step aside, it will come back, it will be there. So just take this time for you right now. And hopefully those are just a few tips that you can use just to start this wellness. But I do really think connection, having someone who's in your corner, setting some goals for yourself, write it down, just set it and just say, look, for the next week, I'm going to do this. And you know what, if you miss a day, don't, the hard thing is to then say, you don't want to throw everything out just because you missed one day. It doesn't matter. You have the opportunity the next day to wake up then and give your best effort to meet the goals that you've set for yourself. Is that making sense? Because it's not about judging yourself. It's not about blaming yourself if you don't make those goals that you've set. How can you stay aligned with this though? Because our health is a 24/7 proposition. We have to understand that. We have this one body, right? You want to look after it. You want to look after yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually to do those things that fill you up.
Yeah, same question to you, Macca and Wise, but I'll go to you. So what worked for you in the early stages? So some of the really practical tips, again, getting back to that, we're talking to the person that's really struggling at the moment. What were some of the things that worked for you?
I think that Tammy nailed it. So like the people who want to change, but the reality is for someone who's been, lack of a better term, Mr. Miyagi or Mrs. Roosed, which is someone gone through the evolution of being Mrs. Roosed. Like it's easy for us to sit here now in a better place, and sort of, but the hard part is influencing someone to either let something go or start a routine. Like why do gyms exist, right? Because, like the amount of people have gone through the New Year's resolution and said we're going to go every day, and then gym memberships just never get used or transacted at all. But that the desire to change, I think, and the enormity in the people's minds as to what it's going to take to introduce a routine that's going to help them. I think that the disconnect there of the small amount of time, as Tammy referenced before, that actually does take to influence something. I'm task orientated, so I took on a lot of things all at once, and I was comfortable to do so. And I think the hardest part with meditation is the fact that you won't see, it's like lifting weights, you're not going to see the outcome for a while. So that I think that part makes it hard for people like a gym membership, like meditation and getting to a better place mentally, that you're going to see the outcomes, and maybe others will see it before you will. But I think if I go, so in the past, I just committed to doing it because I said, I have to see if this is really going to help me. So I was probably more at this has to bloody work or else things could go really wrong for me. But I think for just introducing one thing, and once you get to that one thing, but coming back to the gratitude journal piece, like as Tammy said before, this is my big thing now. And this is for me been so real in the fact that it's not just about, say, putting words to paper about, what I'm happy about, even just putting things. One time, Tammy recently put to me, just put things out to the universe, as in ask questions of things that I need answers for, and allow things to actually, messages to come to me. And since doing this, it's the realness of actually being present. By putting words on the paper and thinking about what you're happy now, or putting down things that I'm looking for answers for, it is absolutely unbelievably phenomenal how crazy it is sitting in a moment, let's say the next day, I haven't even journaled yet for the day, that all these messages are coming to me like, I'm really happy about what's happening in this second. So you can feel presence because you can see something around you that's making you happy and go, wow, this is awesome. It's wonderful. Or you asked a question and some reason you've gone, almost like a movie, you've gone past a sign that says X, Y, and Z on it. You're like, is this for real? And so like the presence piece, I can't understate how most of the world is on autopilot, and there is like very, very little presence in the world, and time is flying by on everybody. But to have presence and actually be able to recognize that you've got it, wow, it creates a lot of power because you can control a lot of your destiny by doing so. And that is the biggest learning for me recently.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing, mate. That's fantastic. And Mackie, you touched on it before as well, but I suppose in COVID, in isolation, and that's probably a lot of people we're talking to at the moment. They've come out, really struggled to get in habits, struggled to get in their routines changed. Are we going back in the office? So what was the catalyst for you? Sorry, not so much the catalyst, but what worked for you?
Yes.
What were the little triggers for you to be able to continue to do that?
Little things, just little things. So without repeating the wonderful, inclusions from Tammy and Was just now, just journaling. Like this guy that ran this 28-day program, Jai, he said that, one of the things he said to Cameron was the body is a detoxification machine. That includes this thing. So when stuff's going on, you can use your journal just to pour rubbish into out of your head onto a piece of paper, put it through the shredder if you have to. Detoxify negative thoughts. To Warren's point just before, I believe that we're all energy, right? So putting things out to the universe, the mind is a sending and receiving station. The brain works like that. It's like magnetic. So that's a little thing to do each day. Just journal your gratitude, journal the things you're thinking about, journal the things that you'd enjoy an answer to. The other simple things were being in nature. Tammy touched on it before. Just going for a walk the dogs. When we were in lockdown, we were allowed to do that. Get out and walk. Reading. So some people like me want to try new things and create new habits, but they need to intellectualize that they're doing the right things. So reading widely and not being afraid just to go out of your comfort zone, and just reading things that are going to stimulate new thought processes. So it was really simple, Ruzi, but daily exercise was the thing that really got me through to the point where I've had to have the surgery recently because I probably overcooked it, but that's okay. I'll get back into that. That's all taken care of. Simple things that can help you move forward one step at a time and being present in each moment. And one thing Tammy touched on, which is key, if your intention is to do good things as often as you can, that's what it's all about. If you miss a day, don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, 100%. No, look, that's fantastic. What a great Culture Couch Live. Thanks, Tammy. That was awesome. And I think we, as a group, we probably need to commit to doing this a bit more regularly, because certainly those tips are amazing. One of the main things I think, main takeaway from all of you is do what suits you. I think too much information around diets and exercise, and they're so hard. It's like, if you're going to run a marathon, you're not going to start running 42 Ks on the first day. It's just not going to happen. You're going to get out and you're going to go for a walk, and then the next day you're going to maybe do a K, and the next day you're going to do it. So don't be hard on yourselves. Just be better tomorrow than you were today. And as Tammy said, if you skip a day, that's okay. Just pick it up the next day. But unbelievable tips, great vulnerability too from everyone. Really appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability, and that's something we talk about Performance by Design as well. We're integrating our wellness piece with Performance by Design, our performance center. So it's all on our website, all the details, etc. But we've got to get more serious about our wellness and our health. Absolutely. So thanks, Tammy. That was really, really awesome. And thanks, Mac, and thanks, Was.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
Thanks, Rosie.
Nice one.
All right, thanks. We'll see you all next week on the Culture Couch Live. Thanks, everyone.